I don't want any water. I don't want any juice. I'll tell you what I really want. Just shut up and give me my whiskey! 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 In a hammock. Whiskey in a hammock.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Whiskey in a Hammock. I'm Eric.
And I'm Chris. And today we have a special guest, George McDaniel, who brought us something very special.
Special is almost an understatement.
It is.
Today, George brought us what he thinks might be a 1925 Gooderham and Worts whiskey, Canadian whiskey. And he's actually going to let us have a poke. So this is pretty awesome.
Well, that's the whole purpose of bringing it up here. We got to have a little taste.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming up.
Oh,
Thanks for bringing it up.
This is cool.
We're excited to hear about how you got it, how you found it, what you've done to it, what you know about it.
Right. Well,
and go.
What we know is that it's Gooderham and Worts. We know that because there's an embossment on the bottom of the bottle. And another bottle I have has the remains of the tin neck seal, which also has the G and W in the tin neck seal.
And J and W is that John and
Gooderham and Worts?
Gooderham and Worts.
G and W.
Oh, G and W.
G and W.
Okay, sorry.
So we did some research on it, and the Gooderham and Worts have been around since the middle 1800s. They started out as a miller, and then they had so much extra grain, they said, what are we going to do with this? So they started with 4-grain alcohol. When Prohibition come along, they went to a blended whiskey. And the Gooderham and Worts distillery was closed, and this gentleman by the name of Harry Hatch bought it. Mm-hmm. And I think that was around 1925 when he went back into production.
Okay.
So this is between 1925 and 1933 when Prohibition ended, somewhere in that range. I found it in the Niagara River while drift diving in scuba.
Which is the Niagara River? River is up in New York.
Up in western New York. It's the border between Toronto, or not Toronto, but Fort Erie and Buffalo.
Right.
This distillery was in Toronto, so they would truck it down to the border, throw it in small rowboats, and then row it across to what was then Black Rock, which is now part of Buffalo. And if they were going to get caught, they would throw the shipment overboard so that they wouldn't go to jail. We're fishing, honest.
Right.
No bait, but we're fishing. You know.
Where the fishing poles?
Yeah.
Follow the boat.
So there was a number of bottles of this stuff found up there. Diving started in 1965, 66, and guys were bringing home armfuls of stuff. I mean, it was all over the bottom.
Really?
They lost so much of it. I think they lost about 10-12%. What they were bringing over. So it was all over the place. So by the time I found this, you pretty much had to dig for them. You know, you'd look in front of a rock or a tree stump or something like that, and you'd have to tie your float off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the current's going to pull you off it, and then you start digging.
So what year did you find this?
Middle 80s.
Middle 80s. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And there was a process to it. The first one we found, we got it up in a boat, patting each other in the back, and the bottle broke.
Oh no!
What happened here? Who kicked the bottle? You know. Well, it turns out that because it's been under a half an atmosphere of pressure for 50, 60 years, it created a vacuum in the airspace in the bottle, and the cork would draw down in the neck. Okay. It wouldn't go all the way in; it would just go down a fraction. But that was enough when you took that air pressure, the water pressure off. Now you've got an overpressurization in the bottle. You're taking it from 65, 70 degree temperature to 80 in the sunlight. The bottle's trying to expand. The cork won't let the gas expand, so the bottle breaks. So to solve that, we got a hold of a hypodermic needle, and we would lance the cork to equalize the pressure between ambient air and the air in the bottle, and then put it in a cooler. And then gradually bring it up to room temperature.
So the cooler would keep the cooler had ice in it.
Yeah, ice in it.
And then that would help.
That would keep it. That would bring it back down from ambient air temperature to whatever, and then you would bring it up slowly.
And the reason you did that is just so that because you were worried about the bottle itself expanding,
right?
And then it'd break, and then you're out of bottle.
Out of bottle. What we did realize was that the cork would not dry out and become stable. It would just disintegrate. And this bottle has got a piece of the cork in the bottom. So if we'd have thought about it back then, the fix would have been to melt some candle wax to keep the earth from drying out the cork. Well, we didn't do that, so we lost all the corks, and of course there goes the Providence. So I can say it's Prohibition whiskey. I know it's Prohibition whiskey, but I can't prove it's Prohibition whiskey because it doesn't have the original cork.
Right.
Who knows? I could have retired to the Bahamas with 5 bottles of Prohibition, and what's it worth? What do you want to spend?
So basically, as you guys have known, when we review whiskeys or bourbons or whatever, we usually pour it in, try it neat, add an ice cube or two. After a little bit of a melt, we try it again because usually the flavor aspect of it changes, and then we wait for a full melt, which again sometimes changes the profile and the flavor and the nose and everything of the whiskey. Today we're not going to do that. It's a 90-something-year-old bottle of whiskey, and it's almost.
It wouldn't be right.
Yeah, it wouldn't be right to add ice to something like this.
So we're not going to do our normal review process.
No, not today.
No,
that's all right. We can put another cork in it. I'm going to lift that up over it. Say when.
Yeah, me too, I guess. I'm super excited. So have you had this before?
We taste tested a bottle of this versus Crown Royal.
Oh, yeah.
And Crown Royal came in a distant second.
I would hope so. So, do you know... That was my Minnesota accent coming out a little bit. Do you know the nose, or what it... It's obviously it's wheated, right? Or no?
No.
No?
Nope. I don't believe it's wheated. I believe
it's in a 4 wheat or 4 grain. That's what I was saying.
No, this is not 4 grain.
It's not 4 grain.
No, this is a blend from later on.
Okay, all right. So do we know what it's?
We know nothing.
We know nothing. We know nothing other than it's old. There's. I don't know what I smell. I do, but I don't know what it is.
Well, you're going to be amazed. There's no bite.
No.
Wow. I've never tasted anything like that.
Wow.
So the silence is a positive.
Yes.
It is. There's a...
No lemon faces?
No.
There's... God dang, this is incredible.
Well, I mean, and this thing has, I can feel the finish. I can feel a little burn coming up afterwards. And I can still feel it going down.
The warmth, yeah.
But, like, they said the first taste, I mean, it has a really different flavor.
It's almost like a dark chocolate or something.
Wow, like when you put your nose in there, like, you're really, you can almost feel it burn.
It's got thick legs to it. I honestly had no idea what to expect, being as though you found it in the bottom of a river.
Isn't that cool?
Like,
that's amazing.
I don't know how river water didn't get in it.
Well, we did come across a few of it that the cork did go in, and all you got is an empty bottle. But you can buy the empty bottles on eBay for like $20-$30.
Yeah. So if you were to tell us what you taste or nose or smell, what would your reaction be? Like, what is there certain notes that you?
I'm not a connoisseur of whiskey by any stretch, but I've never had anything close to this.
No, it's really good.
And that's things like same thing like we just started out recently, not in June. So and we've done 6 reviews so far, and we've sampled a bunch of different whiskeys and bourbons, and I've never
It's hard to explain.
Unique.
It's very unique. And I wonder if it's unique. Obviously, it's unique from how old it is and things like that. But Is this the way it tasted in 1925?
Probably not.
Probably
No?
not.
Probably not. It's aged. Like I said earlier, they wouldn't export. They couldn't sell it until it was 2 years old before Prohibition. Then they wavered so
Then
they
have
could sell
13
it. So
years
it
of
was
Prohibition.
pretty raw.
Yeah.
But the longer it stays in a cool, dark place, bottom of the river,
Right.
smoother it gets, right?
But they did win awards.
Did they?
Yep. The highlight in 1978 at the Paris World Fair. They won a gold medal for the aged rye whiskey.
What was the age?
They didn't say what. How
It
long
wasn't
the
90
age.
years. We know that.
No.
Right, no, not at all.
No, I'm sure it was probably like a 2 year. But
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting.
Well,
because,
they just recently came back into production. They were
yes, they did. Okay,
well, they were sold a couple times after Hatch
Right.
bought it. Then
Yeah.
they finished production in the early 90s.
But that's the interesting thing. So it was 153 years that they were that distillery was in production, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it said they closed in the 90s.
yeah.
Yep.
And then now they're back.
Now they're back.
Now they're back.
Well,
Someone else bought the brand name.
Okay.
Well,
They're-
but
They're not distilling in the original building
No.
anymore. That's
No.
part of the art district in Toronto now.
Okay.
Well, like that was a whole interesting thing. Built a huge distillery in Toronto. It was like
That's good.
the biggest in the in the world at that time. Like so in the 1880s, they were like the biggest distillery almost in the world at that point.
Yeah.
It's
I read that too. Yep.
But like you said, they just recently closed the doors, or in the
the
90s, closed on that factory that's huge, that distillery, and today they turned it into like an arts district,
Yeah.
and they have shot over 1,000 movies at that place because obviously it's so unique and it's
Yeah.
such an interesting building.
So this whole thing has got quite a bit of history behind
Yeah,
it.
no
Yeah.
kidding.
And like I said, I'm sure anybody out there, like I said, I've never tasted anything even close to that compares to this.
Well, I guess a cheers goes out to James Worts and William Gooderham, right?
Yeah.
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 Cheers, boys. You did a hell of a
Yeah.
job.
Hell of a job, eh?
So, do you got any other crazy scuba stories from whiskey adventures?
Whiskey
or
adventures,
anything?
not really. Just a black day when we broke one in a boat. But
This is this
I've got plans for the last bottle though.
Oh yeah, what's
Yeah.
that?
Originally, I was hoping to get 3, one for my grandson and one for the 2 nieces, but I only have 2. Now we got 1.5. So the next plan is when I meet my maker, we're going to set this up on a bar next to the casket. You can have one on me on the way out.
Nice.
Make sure I'm really gone. We're drinking this whiskey. You better be dead.
Or else you'll come back.
Yeah,
and
Well, yeah, I mean,
you'll set up if that's the case.
bury me upside down in case you screw something up. I won't be able to dig my way out.
Right. Oh man.
All right, and so of course, we do the price point, right? So how much?
Right.
did
Well,
this
I
cost?
looked it up,
Yeah.
and
What'd you
now
No,
it'd
we don't.
be
Back then.
$35. But I didn't.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't
back
really
then?
find anything
Oh yeah.
back then.
No, back then it'd been
No.
like about $5 or $6 a bottle.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or less.
Yep. Or,
Which
yeah.
is
I mean,
that's
back then
freaking
you could
expensive.
buy firearms for $0.25.
Well, I was gonna say $5 or $6 for that's expensive.
Well,
Yeah, in the 1920s,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Well,
absolutely.
but there's bootlegging. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like you said. I looked.
Well, the bootlegger was getting $1 a bottle
Oh really?
To bring it over.
to bring it over.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So add that into the retail, you're probably up $4 or $5.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you said, you found it in the Niagara River. Like you said,
Yeah,
only being
Upper Niagara River, above the falls.
and because it's only 1 mile across. from the
It
border?
varies. There's some areas there's people that drink a lot of this swim across, but there's other areas where you're not going to get that far.
Yeah.
But the current's pretty hellacious up there.
Oh yeah.
So that's what you
Oh.
were saying earlier.
Yep.
So when you found this, was it this bottle that you found just the shoulder?
It might have
of
been, I don't know, because I had 4 of them. We drank 2.
And then you had to tie off to something down there, so
Well,
the current wouldn't take you away.
Yeah, if you were digging it. But
Yeah.
this one there was just a shoulder of glass with an air bubble in it.
Mhm.
And the air bubble got my attention, so I said, well, maybe. And I started digging, but I'm kicking like crazy. Because
Yeah.
the float's got an inner tube in it, and that's going north, and I'm trying to stay stationary.
Yeah.
And I'm, and eventually I got it out of there. But you don't want to just grab it because you could fracture the bottle. Because
Right.
there's a lot of, this has been down there for so long, it's really embedded in the bottom sediment,
Yeah.
and you really got to be careful digging it out.
So
It's not like a ship's anchor where you can put a lift bag on it and
Right.
start blowing up the bag, and when it starts to move, get the hell out of the way and up it goes.
Right. Were you scuba diving specifically to find something like
We-
this?
We refer to that area as the Whiskey Run.
Okay.
Ah, okay.
And another story for you, the people that owned the marina, he was a diver. His chief mechanic's a diver. So I'm down there on vacation, all dressed up, no place to go. I said, let's go diving after work. All right. Well, we need somebody to run the boat. So we get this poor guy that doesn't dive, knows nothing about where we're going, what we're doing. And we're leaving the marina, and Mike says, where do you want to go? Because there's all different areas. You can go this area, you find antique bottles. Over here you go where people are fishing, you find fishing poles and stuff. And Bob says, let's go get some whiskey, like we're going to the liquor store, right? So we go out and we get some visual ranges, and he puts the three of us in the water, and don't we find 4 bottles?
No way.
Right away.
And we found them behind this big tree stump.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we're digging through the archaeological layers to get down to the, and there's 4 bottles of it sitting down there. And we get back in the boat. This poor guy just about fell out of the boat. Holy crap! You
I
do this
can
all the
imagine.
time? I said, well, whenever we want whiskey, So he went out. He went out and dropped a couple $1,000s on scuba gear and
Of
scuba
course
lessons
he
and
did.
everything else.
Of
He
course
never
he did.
found a bottle.
Oh,
you
he
know?
did?
Oh, no.
No, he never found it. He wasn't paying attention to where we were.
Right.
Right, and we're not going to tell him.
Right.
Why would you want to
Yeah,
let
it's
that
giving up your
you know?
fishing hole, for God's
Right.
sakes.
So he wouldn't talk to us for a while. He spent all his money.
This is pretty amazing. Like I said, I've
Salute.
never-
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for this. I obviously normally we rank 1 through 10. I'm not gonna do that.
I can't.
I can't.
can't.
It's This is
But
It's a once in a lifetime
yeah, it really
type
is.
thing, really.
right,
And
and that's
thank
why.
you
Yeah.
so
that's why-
much.
Unless you have a few bottles of it,
Right.
then it's
Yeah.
more than a lifetime.
Thank you so much for
But we've
letting us
my
Sample.
pleasure, my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah.
This is
partake in
I've
this.
been needing a reason to do this.
So Chris, hit us with the motto on the way out.
May the wind always sway your hammock. May your glass never go dry.
Cheers.
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 Next time. Nice. That went well. Well done. Thank you for
Probably
being
ran a
on the
little over on that.
show. No, heck no. Not at all.
Whiskey in a hammock. Whiskey in a hammock.
The farmer. Were they like,
Oh.
trying to find?
They had a small freighter that they would fill up with crates of whiskey.
Okay.
And Canadian law, you could export. You couldn't imbibe. You had to export it, and it couldn't be to the States. So they filled up this freighter to the point where the deck cargo was so high the wheelsman was standing on a case of whiskey to see over the deck cargo.
Oh my gosh.
And they're going to Havana.
Oh, Cuba, yeah.
And they leave on Wednesday and they're back on Friday. So they're going to Detroit, they're going to Cleveland, they're going to Buffalo.
Right.
But all the documentation says they're
Says they're going
going,
to
well, they get caught in a late November storm and they wound up shipwrecking on Long Point, which is this huge finger of sand runs out off the north shore of Lake Erie.
Okay.
Back in the 30s, there was no communication at all outside of the local area. So the customs people and revenue people in Toronto didn't get wind of this thing for at least a week to 10 days. By the time they got a truck caravan and went up there to confiscate all this whiskey, nothing there. It's all gone.
Of course. Yeah, right?
And this guy in this book, this Booze, Boats, and Billions, said there wasn't a telephone pole for 100 miles that didn't have a case of whiskey buried next to it. And they went to the only farm in the area, and they tore the house apart, they tore the fruit cellar apart, they tore the barn apart, they tore the haystacks apart.
No.
And all they found was a big pile of ash in the fire pit. And the author said it's a good thing they didn't look in the downspout and the gutters, because every bit of the gutters on that house was lined with bottles.
Are you kidding me?
And it was all down the house. And,
That's amazing.
and they never got a sniff. They never found a bottle.
Good on that farmer, right? So
Yeah,
he
no
knew. He's
doubt.
like, oh yeah.
You know, why would you look in the down?